I was, in that place in life where you're not here or there, you're just stuck and you don't know how to get out of it. I was not happy with where I was in life, and I knew I was wasting my potential. And I was like, I rather try and die trying than not do anything at all. I was okay to disappoint people because in the end, the only person that you're disappointing is yourself by trying to please everyone. You're not ice cream. You can't do it. You can't please everyone.
Welcome everyone for GEPic Journey Season 2, That Time I Totally Flopped. We're back again with something a bit more different compared to Season 1. We're going to dwell a little bit deep into it throughout the session today. I've got an amazing speaker. Welcome Nadia. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, tell us. Who are you? What are you all about?
Okay, so let me start. So I was born in Colombo, but I was raised in Moratuwa, and so I went to Lyceum Panadura. That's where I studied for all 13 years of my school life. I had a good childhood. I got to play on the streets with my cousins and things like that. Probably one of the best days of our lives before things got too real. And I was really good in my studies until like grade 5 or grade 6 when I got a bit distracted with, kiddish things. Then again after that, I didn't really study that well. I was like 29th, 30th in my class type of thing. Because of that, I was put into the box where, not going to study type of box. And I also decided that I belonged in that box. Until one day when I was in grade 10, I think it was. So grade 10 is when we do O-levels because we're Cambridge, right? So that day, one of those, I was still really bad in my studies, still 29th and 30th in my class, high-fiving with my friends who got 18 out of 100 for maths, thinking it's fun. And then one day there was this guy who told me, who made fun of me for my grades, because I got 39 out of 100 for business studies. I know I'm a business owner and I got 39 out of 100, not really cool, but I did. And he bullied me about it. He was like, oh my God, you got 39 out of 100. And he bullied me about it. He wrote 39 out of 100 all over my past paper book. And I was like, okay, it shouldn't be that hard to get more than 39 out of 100. So I'm going to try to be better than this. I wasn't expecting much. I was like, if I get even 60, I'm okay. And then the next semester came and had studied a lot. And I got first in the class. And I was like, I was so surprised that when my teacher gave me my paper and she was like, well done, I was like, what? I said BUSSHIT out loud in class. And she was like, just because you got a good grade doesn't mean that you should talk like that. But she was like, anyway, congratulations. And so that's when I knew, like, damn, I do not belong in this box. I am capable of so much more. And that's when my life changed. And in a way, I'm grateful to that bully because I wouldn't be where I am if not for him, because he made me realize that I was capable of much more. So then I went on to study. I took my studies really seriously. I worked really hard, got good grades for my O-levels and A-levels. And ever since then, my life has not been the same. I've always been achieving things, always trying to be better as a person. And that's why I am where I am today. Very grateful for the support I've had with my friends and family and my teachers as well. What else about me? I would say...
Okay, let me summarize for the audience.
Yeah, sure.
So, average student growing up, usual life story of a child coming from grade 1 to grade 10, had a bully somewhere down the line that bullied you, that inspired you, worked hard, and you realized that you could be better and you could do better and you belong outside the box.
Yep.
So if you're one of them, you know what to do. Subscribe, because you're going to hear a lot more in the next few minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then I went on to do CIMA, which I didn't like. I was also one of those kids that came out of school and didn't know what to do. So I tried a few things. I did CIMA. I did it till like the second stage. I didn't like it. It was too theoretical for me, and I'm not a theoretical person. I like to do things that are not ordinary. And then I started working right after I left school. So I was in a marketing internship, and then I went to work for an outsourcing company, and I learned a lot because I kind of grew with the outsourcing company. So I was there from the start. So because of that, I was really close to the CEO, and he kind of grew with me, and I was his ally through all of that, which I'm really grateful for, because like when you're like 17 and out of school, you wouldn't expect someone to trust you with so much responsibility. But somehow that a CEO, his name is Tuti, he trusted me with a lot of responsibilities, and because of that, I learned a lot. Like, he didn't judge me for my age, he didn't judge me for the fact that I didn't have a degree, he just judged me for who I was, which I really appreciate. I feel like a lot of people just judge people based on their paper qualifications or how old they are and what they've done. But I feel like some people without those credentials have so much more potential than most. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you had a CEO. What's his name again?
Tuti.
Okay, and are you still working at the same place?
No.
Okay, so you had a CEO that gave you the necessary support, showed that age is just a number. If you have the, the drive, you could get there, and gave you the necessary foundation, and that helped you grow. And how old are you, if I may ask?
I'm 23.
Oh, cool. So you're 23, and leading up to 23, you did SEMA, you worked as an intern, and then you had a CEO that gave you the necessary foundation, and you're no longer there at that organization. What are you doing right now?
I work at Newswire. They have a few other brands. They have Newswire, Crickwire, DWire, and I kind of handle all those brands in terms of sales and marketing. And on top of that, I have my outsourcing company, and I also have Meena, which is a community for women. So I do that in my free time as well.
When do you get a break?
I try to on Saturdays.
On Saturdays? Okay, so you have the Saturdays off.
I try to on Saturdays.
Cool.
But yeah. So that's a bit about me personally. So like I said, he trusted me with all that responsibility. And then later on, I went to do other jobs. And I still wanted to educate myself. So I did SIM. I completed it this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, so that's a bit about my journey. Just most of it. This year, however, was very different to other years.
Which is what we want to hear more about, which is what we've heard a lot about.
Yeah.
Go, excited.
Yeah, so by the way, I had postponed SIM for like years. I was supposed to finish a long time ago. But this year, I was like, you know what? I went through a bit of a rough patch between January to March. I was kind of stuck in between things. I was, in that place in life where you're not here or there, you're just stuck and you don't know how to get out of it. So I was in that place, and I was hoping that something would fall from the sky and just save me from it, but I knew that wasn't going to happen, that I had to do something towards that. So what I did was, I was tired of being in that rut. I didn't want this life anymore because I knew I was capable of so much more. And so what I did is I just took out a notepad and I wrote certain things. What I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, what I wanted to achieve. And I just wrote it down in as much.
This was around when?
This was like between March to April.
This year?
Yeah.
What inspired you? Why that change?
Because like I was not happy with where I was in life, and I knew I was wasting my potential. And I was like, I rather try and die trying than not do anything at all.
I understand.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you share that, because one of the objectives of this podcast is to reach out to the audience out there who may be in a similar state right now.
Correct.
And when we hear more into your story, I'm sure they're going to be inspired. And we actually had on our season 1 an episode that focused on career and self-development. And I just remembered when you said you took a piece of paper and you started writing down, and that's one thing that was focused on it, which is the importance of taking a moment, taking a break, and sitting down and be like, hey, where am I right now? What do I want to do?
Exactly.
And as soon as you did that, you had more clarity.
For sure. Like, I firmly believe on putting things on paper. It gives you so much more clarity, because we have so many thoughts in our head, right? We have things about work, about our personal life, about what we're going to eat, and there's too much of clutter.
Social media.
Exactly. So the best thing to do is just note it down. And I did a SWOT analysis of myself.
Interesting.
My strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities and threats. So I'm very self-aware thanks to all of this. And so
Can I ask you a question? Sorry to interrupt the flow. where did you learn, or what made you think that you should do this? Like, what prompted you to be like, hey, let me do a short? Was there anything you read on? It was just naturally
No,
different?
it was not natural. Actually, I did a lot of research. I started watching YouTube videos on people that are focused on self-development and things like that, because I knew that if I was to be more successful, I need to fix myself. I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. They go straight into the business idea. They go straight into their project. They forget that it begins with you.
Preparation.
Exactly. And you need to
Self-evaluation.
fix the system, which is yourself, before you implement anything else. That's really important, because if you're not someone that, for example, I have a bit of a busy life, but you have to be a version of yourself that can accept that kind of work. If the hustle is not for everyone, it's tough. You have to be tough in order to accept that kind of lifestyle. So people forget that you have to be that version of yourself to accept that type of success. Just like the way, an old car will not be able to run a long journey. You have to probably fix the car or get a new car in order to go to that new journey.
Have you watched our first podcast by any chance? Because you brought up this car example, and I remember someone mentioning that one.
No, that's just the most random idea that came in
interesting.
my head. Yeah. So that's when I realized I need to fix myself first, because I knew that there were a lot of issues I had. I had been in a few relationships that really upset me, that eroded my idea of myself. I forgot who I was, what I stand for, what are my values, who am I? I just lost total sense of that, and I realized I needed to fix that before I did anything else. So I did the SWOT analysis. I wrote in detail what I wanted my life to look like, my ideal self. What does she do? How does she talk to herself? How does she talk to others? What type of job does she have? What type of impact does she make to the world? I went into detailing how my house would look like. So I went into that much detail because I'm a visual person. So I like to think of things.
What makes you be a visual person? Why does it help you?
I feel like it's easier for you to, I'm a big person on vision boarding. So when you see it, it's easier for you to remember, and your subconscious also remembers it, then, because we have, like I said, we have a lot of things going on in our heads, a lot of things we need to remember. So when you have a visual reminder, I feel like it works better. It's like I'm a big person on vision boarding. My phone wallpaper is customized to suit whatever thing I need to remember, blah, blah, blah. So I did my SWOT analysis, and I was like, okay, this is who I want to be. So from today onwards, I'm only going to show up as this person. I'm not that person yet, for sure, but I'm going to show up as this person. If it's someone that eats healthy, I'm going to make sure I eat healthy for the next few weeks. If it's someone that cares about their physical well-being, I'm going to try to work out on a regular basis. Just small things like that, incremental steps to become that person. And so that's when I changed, because not only did I change as a person, my relationships changed with my family and friends, how I viewed myself, how I carried myself. Now I used to be someone, if someone insults me, I'll just keep my mouth shut and wait. I don't have but now I wouldn't do that. Now I would stand up respectfully, of course. I wouldn't get into fights. I would speak up respectfully. I'm like, I didn't really like that you said that. Can you not do that next time? I wasn't someone that used to do that. I would accept what I was told. And I was a people pleaser, which is a huge issue that a lot of girls face. They're scared to say no. They're scared of being disliked. Girls and boys, yes. Society in general. Yes. So I stopped being a people pleaser. I was okay to disappoint people, because in the end, the only person that you're disappointing is yourself by trying to please everyone. You're not ice cream. You can't do it. You can't please everyone. So those are some things that I learned, and since then I've been pushing my limits. I started my outsourcing company. That was also something that I was really scared to do, because I don't know enough. I don't have enough capital. I'm not experienced enough. I'm only 23. I have time. I was like, no, I'm going to push myself into the deep end and see what happens, because the best way to learn is by pushing yourself out there. You'll never be too ready. Someone at 55, 60 can say, I'm still not ready. You're never going to be really ready. So I pushed myself into it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. The first thing that I did is I bought a domain name, and I'd invested money in that. So I was like, yeah, there's no turning back now. I've spent my hard-earned money. Then I did the website, and then that's when I was like, yeah, I have to do this now. There's no going back. And I was okay with failing. Even if it failed, I was completely okay with it, because I've learned so much from it.
You built that confidence and
that confidence. And if it fails, I'll just start something else. Simple as that. We shouldn't be so afraid of failing, I feel like that's a...
Nadia, I've got a question though. For the audience that's listening in to us today, or listening in on this podcast, you said You had that confidence, you didn't have a fear of failure. But how do you build your how do you strengthen your mentality towards that? What did you do? Gotta share that.
So for example, the theme for this year for me was just self-development. I was just trying to be the best version of myself. And so I built that confidence by showing up for myself. For example, if I told myself I was going to do this and this today, I would do it, because then that builds the trust I have within myself.
I'm going to do it a little bit deep. Give me examples. Something to think of.
For example, like I said, like if I have a to-do list and I promise myself I'm going to get this done, then I do it.
So you had a to-do list that helped you?
I have a to-do list that's segregated in high priority, medium priority, and low priority.
So you had everything written down.
Exactly. Because otherwise I can't manage everything. I have a 9 to 5. I have 2 projects that I do on the side. Both are businesses that are fully functional. That's the only way I can track that. And on top of that, I have a personal life. I spend a lot of time with my parents, my grandparents. So I have to be able to remember, okay, call Archie today. Don't forget to do that. So things like that I have to.
So you'd be more of a structured routine person.
Yes, I have to. Like my calendar is in detail. It's planned in detail. I have to block out. Yeah.
If you're put into a situation where you have to work outside that structured routine, does that worry you, or does that give you that whole, I'm a routine person, I don't like change? Does that affect you?
In what context?
So let's say, for example, you had planned today to come for this podcast and talk to us and give your story out to the audience right now, and we call you up and say, hey, you know what? We're not shooting it today, we're shooting it tomorrow. And we want you to sort of change your plans and then be there. Would that affect? Why I ask this question is something that I've constantly read up on and I've sort of referred to is when you're a routine person, sometimes
you're too rigid.
Yes, too rigid. You?
I mean, you have to be realistic, right? Yes. Not everything is going to go according to plan. So I mean, if you had told me that, that we had to reschedule it, I'd be like, okay, and I'll go back home and I'll do what I was supposed to do tomorrow. And I'll switch.
So you planned your week.
Oh
also.
Yeah, I have to.
It's not only for the day.
Because like there are client meetings and things like that happen after 5. So my after 5s are quite packed. Because that's the only time I can, because my commitment is in my 9 to 5. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Cool. So let's speak a bit more about that time you totally flopped. Tell us, what's that moment, what's that incident? Give us a little bit more insight into it.
I think the truth is, in the most simplest terms, I would say I gave up on myself. I was like, this is the life I accept now. I will accept to be doing the bare minimum.
When did you give up on yourself?
I think it doesn't happen all at once. I think it happens gradually. Maybe you miss your meals. Maybe you stop doing your work more consistently. You forget to take care of yourself.
Were there incidents that prompted you to?
I went through a breakup that hurt. So yeah, that kind of changed my life. Because when you've been with someone for so long, and then that goes away, you kind of, it messes up your, it's hard. But then loss is a part of life, and you just have to go through it. But at that moment, you're not like, oh, what can I learn from this? You're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. So yeah, I went through that. I was with that person for 7 years, so it did sting. But I was sad, of course. But then I was like, I don't want my life to be like this. This can't be all that is to life. I can't just give up on myself like that. So that's when I started, doing research about.
So that's the turning point in your life? You use that as a blessing?
I feel like a lot of bad things always end up being for a good reason. You might not see it initially. So that's why I've started not glorifying failure or loss or heartbreak. I've started looking for what is this trying to tell me. Because rejection
Very important thing you said that you didn't start glorifying loss of failure, but you looked at it and see what can I learn out of it.
Yeah, because that was probably one of the most heartbreaking points of my life, right? So I was like, if I can go through that, I can probably go through anything. And so that's why now when something happens to me in a way that I don't like, let's say I lose an opportunity or something like that, I'm like, okay, that's okay. Let's see what this is trying to tell me. Because there's more likely a reason that this happened. And I'll probably get something better, So I changed my perspective on things, and Rejection is redirection. I think a lot of people mistake that. They often forget, because I was thinking back to myself when I went through this heartbreak about different times I've gone through in life that I thought like, okay, I'm never going to get out of this. And that I did end up being fine. And that gave me the confidence that I will definitely get through this as well. Because when you are a good person as well, I think that things work in your favor. So you don't have to stress that much. Not that I'm saying that I'm a saint. I'm just saying that
None of us are.
if you're a person with pure intentions and you move like that, I think you don't really lose anything. People lose you. So I had that confidence as well. But I don't want to give all the credit to my breakup as well. It all started within me. Yeah. And so, yeah, so then I kind of wanted to be a better version of myself, because I was like, this is not all I have to offer. You know, I'm made for so much more. And I remember things like getting through the bully at school, getting through, because most of my life, people have told me I can't do what I'm going to do. I can't tell you how many people doubt me. Even now, saying that I'm not capable. When I told people I'm starting my own business, they're like, oh, you can't. You're too young. You don't know enough. You're just a girl.
You love a challenge.
I do, but it's not in the way that I'm trying to prove them wrong. I'm trying to prove it to myself. I'm not trying to prove it to them. I'm trying to get that confidence within myself, like, you can do it. It's for me. It's not to prove anyone else. So yeah, that's what changed my life. And this year has been such a crazy year. Starting my own company and then starting Nina, which I didn't expect to happen. I've always known that I wanted to make an impact in a larger scale, just in a way that helps people, but I wasn't sure how. And I never knew that it was through Nina. That's why I firmly encourage to anyone listening, if you feel like there's something in you, that you are made for something more, or there's something that your body is telling you that you're supposed to do something, trust that instinct. Like, trust it. Even if it flops, that's okay. Trust that instinct and go with the flow. It will take you to so many avenues that you didn't know was possible, you know. And I would firmly recommend. For example, I was in Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is like a great forum that was brought by ICTA and MasterCard. It was in November. The only reason I got to be on that platform is because one day at a Spike event, I went and walked up to the stage when they were like, does anyone want to say anything? I went and I pitched my businesses. And I was really scared. Like, my heart was beating really fast. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this, because I'm not a public speaker. And I found myself walking towards it without being like, I couldn't believe it. I had started walking. I was like, yeah, you have to do this now. And I went and I pitched my businesses in front of like 200, 300 people. I was really scared. But I did it because it scared me. And that's what got me onto Global Entrepreneurship Week. I was able to talk on a platform. I was able to reach more people for Nina and Synergics both. And that was a great experience. So that just goes on to say that when you do things that you think that you're not capable of or that you can't do, that's exactly when you should do it. You know, you should do things that scare you. I'm a huge believer of that.
So let me summarize to the audience so far what we've heard. Average student.
Yes.
Bullied.
I think below average would be a better word.
Cool. Bullied. Got through the whole session of being bullied. Became, class number one.
Mm-hmm.
Teacher congratulated you with a bit of a, hey, don't stop there.
Yeah.
Started working, started SEMA. Didn't feel it was right. Started working, shifted towards SIM. Pushed it back because you were not too sure when you wanted to do it. That time you really felt you flopped was that moment when you went through that difficult breakup where you used it and learned from it. Set up 2 companies of your own and you do a 9-to-5 job. You credit a lot of what you sort of got to your CEO in terms of the foundation.
Yeah, I think the companies I worked for, they trusted me and they gave me a lot of responsibility at a young age. Like, I was a manager at 18. Which was great, and that taught me a lot about how to run a business, how to deal with people, because it was tough being an 18-year-old telling 24, 25-year-olds what to do. They didn't like it. But it taught me a lot about dealing with people, so I tried to be a good boss, and that's probably why I can still manage teams now.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And with that, you went on to sort of developing that self-confidence, but one thing you credit yourself to being able to get there is you worked on self-development early this year, March, April of 2024, and visualized where you wanted to be, put things down on paper, have your to-do list. You are in a way organized, routine driven, but if there is a change to it, you're able to adapt.
Yeah, because you have to be able to adapt. For example, if my mom says, hey, we have a family dinner, I have to be able to rearrange things, even if that means taking my laptop for that dinner.
Cool. So it's been interesting so far. We're going to take a short break. If you found it interesting so far, subscribe. Thanks, Nadia, for sharing all that. You spoke about the time you flopped, which was a difficult situation early this year, and how you sort of got yourself up and came to where you are right now. I think we want to learn more about you. We need to know who's this Nadia? Tell us.
So do you want to know about what happened or a
bit of what you did to come out of it? I mean, the whole purpose of us shooting this podcast is to let that viewer out there know that, you could go through some sort of a struggle. You could really struggle out there with something or the other, but there is always a way out of it. And we brought you on board for you to share your story. At 23 years, how did you come out of it, and what have you done to get there, and what have you built from it? So just tell us a bit about all that.
So I mean, it was definitely very difficult because on top of that, I also had to show up for work and things like that. So it took a lot of courage. So I think if I would describe how I felt at that moment, I was just absolutely lost. It was like I was in a black hole and I was figuring out how to get out of it. And I spent a lot of days in bed just not doing anything. Nobody could make me do anything also. I didn't go out at all. I was skipping meals. I was, like I said, I was mostly in bed.
What was that moment? What made that switch?
I think after living like that for a few days.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably about a good week.
Okay.
I was like, okay, there has to be more to it. Even if I'm not gonna come out doing anything better, I'm at least gonna have to try. I owe that to myself. I care about myself that much to show up for myself. So I was like, okay. And then I opened up YouTube and I was like, how to get out of a mess or how to get out of a rough patch in life or something like that. And I came up with a few suggestions and I noted down certain things that stuck with me, things that I can do. Simple things like eat regularly. Make sure that you're hydrated. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself as much as you can do. Spend time with people that care about you. So those are some things that I did to get started.
You had a community, you had a group of people, you had, again, true to yourself, you had a structure, routine that you were trying to follow.
Yeah, I mean, it was more towards my family. Like I had 2 baby cousins and they're absolutely delightful and they make me really happy. So just hanging out with them and listening to the crazy things that they do and say, that made me really happy. So I found myself spending a lot of time with them. I didn't really meet my friends that often because then that would mean I had to talk about what I was feeling, and I would just like to just be around someone else. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, my parents, my baby cousins, and then I was starting to feel a bit better. I did hang out with certain friends as well.
So there is always a way out of.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't 100% better, but I was better than what I was feeling the last few days. So then what I did is, okay, now I'm feeling better. Now I'm in a better state of mind. What can I do to help myself even further? So that's when I did some research. I came up with some simple steps, just setting small goals. Because even working out made me realize I feel much better after a workout or doing some kind of exercise, whether it's a walk or just riding the bicycle or just doing something at home. I always ended up feeling better. So I was like, okay, I'm going to prioritize doing something
It's interesting that you say that, because in our first season we featured about wellness and the importance of it, and the fact that you mentioned one of the ways you sort of got out of it was to sort of get into a routine in terms of a workout or gym or whatever it may helping you. That's interesting. So that helped you. Interesting.
And then I got on Canva and I made a poster for myself. I put a picture of myself when I was 5 and I put a picture of myself recently and I was like, remember who you're showing up for. And I wanted to make sure that my little self would be someone that I would be proud of eventually. And so I pasted it on my door. That was the first vision board I made. And then I wrote some things. Remember how far you've come. Remember what you achieved. Remember how you got through things you thought you couldn't get through. So that was really, really powerful for me.
Something interesting the audience should hear. Remember, if you are feeling down and out, take a picture of yourself when you were small, a picture of yourself right now, and put it up there and be like, this is who I was, I want to be better. And that gives you that inspiration. And that was one thing that you did to come out of that moment of struggle.
That was one of the first things I did. And then I made a small vision board on an A4 sheet of things I wanted to do. Just some pictures of things. I wanted to get my driver's license. I wanted to finish SIM.
Small things.
Small things. Very achievable.
Realistic.
Yeah, realistic.
Smart goals.
Didn't do anything crazy like I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. Just reasonably possible things. I want to have this much of savings. I want to spend more time with my family and things like that. I made small goals. And then I started working towards those.
When did you start making bigger strides?
So once I started doing the small goals, and once I've achieved those, I realized I needed to do something much more than that. Because like I was.
What prompted you to think that you needed to do much more than that? Like where was that change? I'm just trying to understand your story so our audience.
I mean, I don't mean to sound proud or anything, but I made so much progress in 1 month from the time that I told myself I'm not accepting this life anymore, that I just got, let's say, a bit presumptuous, and I started achieving for bigger, because I was in absolute shock because I couldn't relate to who I was. That last few months where I was in bed, I was like, I can't believe I felt that way because I had worked so much.
When was that switch? Where did it happen? Do you recall? Or it was just a natural course of action?
It happened gradually, acceptance first. Accepting that I'm a mess, I need to get out of it, and the only way I can do it is by myself. No one's coming to save me. I had to accept that. I had to accept that I was not ideal and that I was wasting my life. And then that's when I accepted it. Then I made tiny steps, very gradual. It didn't happen overnight. The first day I had to decide that I wanted to change. Then the next few days I was planning, writing things down, SWOT analysis, like I said, just making tiny goals. And then I made a huge vision board with like different aspects of life. And I even photoshopped my face into certain things, like pictures of like Michelle Obama, and things like that. Forbes 30 under 30, a picture of Kim Kardashian.
Why did you do that?
So that I could make my goals feel more realistic. So that I could actually see myself doing those things.
Visualizing and dreaming to be that person gave you that bit of an inspiration to establish the two businesses.
Because I don't think a lot of people realize how powerful your mind is. Whatever you think, how you talk to yourself, how you carry yourself, it all affects how people view you, the opportunities you get, how you even see yourself through things. So like it was very important that I saw myself and believed that I am capable of that.
Little steps, visualizing, taking that understanding that you can do better is what you did to come out of that struggle. It was a gradual movement.
Yeah.
And that's when you established both businesses together?
No. So it started off with Synergex, which is the outsourcing company I have. So like I mentioned, as I left school, I was in an internship for a few months, and then I went to join an outsourcing company. I was 17 at the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he was also initially starting out. He'd been like in business for like a year or less than that. And he started, and then I was going with him as well. I was a business development executive. So I got to learn how he dealt with clients. I was also coordinating with clients. So I kind of learned a lot throughout that process.
That experience necessary.
Yeah, and he gave me that responsibility, and he trusted me. He was like, I'm going to give you this money. You decide how it would do well in our office. You decide what would work. So I really appreciate it, and I always thank him for that whenever I meet him, whenever he comes to Sri Lanka, because he's based in Australia. And so because of that, I became business development manager. Then I was assistant manager. And so I got a lot of authority, and I was able to have teams under me. And I would also learn that, the success of your team depends on you as well. A lot of people mix up how it is to be a manager. Like that's how you boss everyone around and things like that. But no, being a manager means having the power to empower people, to tell them that they're capable of doing things. I wanted to be the manager that I wish I had. That's what I always tell myself. So I was very understanding whenever there was an issue and they were all freaking out. I was like, okay, let's get through this together. And I would sit with them and fix through that. While there were other managers that were like, okay, you got into trouble, get yourself out of it. I'm gonna issue a warning, and they would tell HR to give them a warning. I'm like, that's not what it is to be a manager. If you go,
and that's not what the current culture looks for. They look at
exactly
more than a boss, a friend, a colleague, someone they can look up to.
Exactly.
And you realize that, and that's what you brought into
even
the
in
whole
Synergex
context.
right now, even with Nina and things like that, I have a very open communication where they're able to tell me, hey Nadia, I messed up. I did this. How do you think we should handle it? I want that to be open, Of course, there are certain consequences for certain types of action, but I like to keep it open, and I like to be able to be approachable. Because like I said, I want to be the boss that I wish I had. That's what drives me as well.
It's interesting that you share that. Can I count it to the fact, was it always like that, or was it that moment when you really flopped and you were trying to pick yourself up that molded you to?
No, I've always been like that.
So you had that in you.
Yeah, not just that. In school, when everyone told me I couldn't be a certain thing, when I was bullied and things like that, I always wished that someone stood up for me. So I wanted to make sure that as I grow, I become someone that stood up for people. And I started getting the name Mother Nadia in school, like Mother Teresa, because I would always defend people that are bullied and things like that.
So rejection is something that you don't like, or bullying is something that you don't
I don't like bullying, and I don't like when people talk bad about themselves. So whenever I hear it, I try to step in and be like, no, you shouldn't say that about yourself. Not that like I start fights or anything like that. But I try. I mean, I can't save the world, that's for sure. But I try to help as
at least one person.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I've always had that with me because I've gone through it. I know what it's like, and I wished I had someone that stood up for me. So I told myself, as I grow up, I will be that person that stands up for someone. And that affected how I ran businesses, how I ran different types of communities, how I worked with people. It changed my whole outlook.
I know you shared about the fact that you set up 2 businesses, you have an outsourcing company. I'm curious, what's Nina all about?
So Nina,
tell us a bit about it.
Nina is a community for women. So when I started off my company Synergex, it was in May or June, I think June. So it's quite recent. I remember coming up with certain issues like dealing with difficult clients as a woman in business and things like that. And I remember feeling like, okay, there should be another female entrepreneur to ask, like, what did you do when a client did this to you? What do you do when this happens? There was no one. And there was no forum for me to be able to like, hey, can anyone help me with this thing? And I realized there should be a community for that. And so I met this wonderful girl called Ovini. She also is a founder. She has a Pinterest management company. She's a wonderful girl. We actually started Nina together. That's why it's Nina, because she's Ovini and I'm Nadia, so everyone does Nina. And we found out later that Nina means girl in Spanish. So it worked out really well. So we got talking about, like, don't you think, I was telling her, don't you think that there should be a platform for girls to be able to meet and talk about things, or a group where they're like, hey, this client's acting really weird. How do I handle it professionally? Things like that. And so we made a group chat. I mean, I shared it on my platform, my Instagram, and she did too. And it just blew up. Like, people wanted to join. People were waiting for the next event and things like that. So that's what happened. So actually, the main thing in Nina is we're trying to empower, educate, and support. Empower in the fact that just being in a community with women that have strong goals, that are strong-minded, that are determined, that is empowering. Support the fact that we're all in the same situation and that we're helping each other to achieve our goals, that's a support. Educating, just trying to have as many resources available through workshops, through documents and things like that, just for women to have direction when they're running a business. How to deal with an uncomfortable situation with a client, things that women face, dealing with bias, gender inequality, things like that. We just want to be able to have resources that women can access whenever they feel like, okay, this is something I'm going through. That's what we're trying to do. I mean, it's really new. We started in September. It's been 2.5 to 3 months now. So we're also still figuring out how it works because everyone in the community has other jobs and commitments. So right now our focus is to have like an event on a monthly basis, and we have a group chat that's always open for questions and advice. And hey girls, I'm going through this. Do you have any advice? We even had recently some girls talking about going through breakups, and they're like, hey, I just got out of a 4-year relationship. Anything that you girls can have to advise me on this? How can I get through it? And there was so much of support that the messages were just ding, 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 ding. All the girls were coming to support each other, telling this is what helped me, this is what I went through, and this is how well I'm doing now. So it gave so much of encouragement to the girls. So, and that's what Nina is all about.
Is it a business or is it more of a
At the
community?
moment, it's a community. I haven't really thought about how to make it a business. I'm not sure how I want to do it. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into it as well. But right now it's just a community and just a safe space until I'm sure about what I want to do next. Because it depends on the community, what they want from us. So at the end of every event, I'm like, hey girls, what would you want on your next event? How can I make this a community that's better for you? What do you need? How can I help you? And they give me all different types of suggestions, like, can we network a bit more? Can we have more workshops? Can we meet regularly? So like that, I'm able to get their insights and work on it in the next few events. So for example, we were supposed to have a workshop this December for vision boarding, which I'm a huge fan of. But everyone's so busy with the holidays, we postponed it to January so that more people
When you say
can.
vision boarding, explain a bit to our audience. By the way, subscribe, don't forget. Go ahead.
Vision boarding, let me say it in the simplest terms. So vision boarding is just something where you, like I always say, write down your goals, write down habits that you want to have, what type of person you want to be, and just having visual elements that remind you of it. For example, I wanted to start reading this year because I'd lost that habit. So I had a picture of some of the books that I wanted to read, and it's like a stacked up picture of a book, and I mentioned it there. I wanted to spend more time with my family, so I put some pictures of my family at the bottom. And just things like that, some quotes that I like that I want to remember within the day. Like I said, I Photoshop certain pictures of myself in certain situations where I'm confident, I'm running a business, I'm speaking in a room full of men and I'm not scared. So vision boarding is just a way for you to vision your goals, just a visual reminder of your goals. So I have it at the back of my door, so whenever I wake up I can see it, and I have it saved on my phone as well so that I can look through it. But it's stuck in my brain now.
Because you've been looking at it day in, day out, it's given you. So from the start of the year to now, is it safe to say that you've transformed yourself?
Yeah, I don't recognize, like I go through pictures of myself and it's with swollen eyes and puffy face and chubby, and I'm like, who is this girl? So yeah, I have changed a lot. I'm still a work in progress. I'm not perfect, that's for sure. And I think
all of us are.
Yeah, and I think self-development is a constant process.
Yes.
One day you're going to be good, one day you're not going to be so great. And it's just about consistency, not intensity. Yeah. Any other questions you have for me?
Amazing thing that you shared, saying you started Nina in September, you're still trying to figure things out. So if there's anyone out there, it's not only a comment.
Yeah, let me just make it clear, it's not for business owners per se. It's just basically for girls that want to meet their maximum potential, to get out of social boxes that they've been put in, who want much more for their life, who want to learn how to love themselves, how to be more confident. Because I was also in a state where I doubted myself. I was my biggest hater. I easily took criticism personally and things like that. So I had to really work on myself. And the reason I started Nina is because I wanted to make sure that all these girls out there have the opportunity to tap into that potential. They have, like, self-love is not a myth, literally. It is very possible. Self-love is not getting your nails done and getting your hair done and buying your favorite bag. Self-love is being able to say no when you want to say no. Self-love is making sure you have a healthy meal on a daily basis, that you don't skip meals. That's showing up for yourself. So that's the message I want to bring across to ladies. And I want them to know it's possible. And there's no age restraints. We have people from different ages in our group. Some of them are working moms. Some of them are moms that work at home. and things like that. So it's very diverse. I don't want to make it a niche. I want it to be accessible to everyone because these are topics that anyone can relate to.
I suppose listening to you speak, I guess it's safe to say the moment you felt like you were sort of on ground zero and you had to pick yourself up, that sort of gave you inspiration to perhaps position yourself to set something up like Nina, correct?
I've always known I wanted to do something impactful, but I didn't know how. I didn't know whether it was to help children, whether it was to help the less fortunate. I didn't know what it was, and I never knew it would be through Nina. But as soon as it happened, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to do. And out of all the things I do, the thing that brings me the happiest is Nina. These girls coming in and saying that they really benefited from the last session, or they learned something that helped them, or they started working out and taking themselves more seriously because of me or something the community did. That's what I want.
Interesting. So is it safe for me to say again, if there's anyone out there that's willing to guide, mentor and support Nina and sort of help you bring this to the next level, you're open to hearing this?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, in November, we had a really great self-love workshop that was handled by Kaushali. She's the director of Coca-Cola. So she was very influential, and we had a huge crowd because of her. And coming from someone like her, talking about her struggles with self-love and the pressure to be successful and how she neglected herself through that, it was really inspiring to everyone. So we've had a lot of support from a lot of people, both men and women, that are super supportive of Nina and giving us opportunities to talk about what we do. So we've had a lot of support, and of course we're looking to get more support so we can support more people.
Great. You got me convinced that even though you have that struggle, you could come out of it. I mean, it's been amazing in such a short period of time. I'm pretty sure most of our audience out there will or can relate to what you're going through. I'm sure they'll want to learn more from your story. So if you have any comments, any feedback, any questions you'd like to ask, feel free to drop comments on the video, and I'm sure Nadia would be more than happy to respond to it. Cool, so we got something a little bit different. We got two more joining in to have a bit of a discussion. It's been amazing, isn't it, guys? Melantha from GEPic, one of the GEPic members from season 1, Kavisha from GEPic joining in. Guys, you heard Nadia talk. Let's have a discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Let's dive deep into it. To-dos. What do you guys think about it? What are your thoughts?
I think so far, based on what she has said, there's definitely a lot to learn. I think personally, I'm someone that doesn't really like to note things down. I prefer to sort of have things on my phone, or rather write things down, opposed to what you said. But yeah, I think I've tried it for a bit. Didn't really work out for me. But I've seen people definitely benefit from it. And I've seen posts all over saying, write things down. It helps register better. Yeah. And like you said, having a vision board, things like that, help you put things into place. So yeah, certainly from that aspect, and seeing how organized you are and what you've been able to accomplish within this year.
Mel, we want you to be organized. Why not you do it? Go ahead.
No, it's just really nice to see that you've been able to accomplish all of this in the span of a year. And you never know, right? When a year starts, we're going into a new year. I think by the time this is released, we will be in a new year. And starting a new year is, you never know what could come, what you could achieve during that year or what could happen during that year. So just to see what she has been able to achieve in the span of 1 year and how that sort of shapes the next 5 years of her life or the next, 10 years of her life. It only takes 1 year just to change. And, you don't know for you that year could be next year. So, it's nice to see.
I think what Melantha says makes sense because, we know it. You need to take things down on paper. You need to have a structure. You need to have a vision board and all that stuff. And even if you refer to our first episode of season 1, the first podcast that we, launched and released, and it spoke about career and self-development, it speaks about the importance of ironing out your goals. Yeah. Let's say you're not a to-do list person, well, but you have goals. You know where you want to be at. So you have, in a way, visualized. It's just that
the method's different.
Method is a bit different.
So,
Has it been working so far?
don't do that to me. No, certainly, yeah. I think. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm interested in knowing about something from Nadia also. Now, you are a routine person, like Mel said. You are up to a routine. Have you ever felt the productivity guilt where you're up to a routine and you've done to a certain level, you've done a lot of work to a certain level, but you still feel not enough? How do you find that balance out of it? Like, how do you go about it?
I wouldn't say.
I know why she's asking this, by the way.
I do have that guilt actually, because I'm always working, and then when I'm not having work, I'm like, oh, okay, now what? But I get it. It does happen to me. Like, for example, if I sleep in, I feel really guilty about that because I've pushed back like 2 hours of my day. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. But I mean, I have to tell myself that I'm not a machine. I'm a person with feelings and things like that. Sometimes I'm more tired than other days. So I tell myself, like, it's okay. You only slept in a bit more. You still have 12, 13 hours of the day left. You don't have to let the fact that you slept in 2 hours extra kind of haunt you. And so I changed my narrative about it because I was the type of person that if I start my day late, my whole day is cursed, and I'm like, I'm not going to do anything today.
But there's something I think that needs to be taken into account with what Nadia shared. Sometimes when you're routine and you're structured, you're process driven, you're tuned to certain things. One thing personally that I've sort of learned is when you have that moment of you do nothing and then your mind is relaxed and not on a to-do list, that's when amazing ideas come out. And that's personally I've experienced it. And sometimes I actually tend to go for a run. I always tell that run, yes, it's to keep me fit, keep me active, but that run is an hour that I do or a 45-minute time that I do that doesn't allow me to do any of those. I mean, it is a task-driven thing that I want to run every day, but that time gives me that freedom to think, okay, hey, maybe there's this idea. I reflect on things and so you'll be amazed sometimes how many brilliant ideas you get while you're in shower.
Yeah.
Grabbing a shower. And then you're like, oh,
that's so
interesting.
true.
And then I'm thinking someone needs to build something. When you're in shower, you could note things down because by the time you're done having the shower and you come out like,
You forget the idea.
So I do think, referring to what you said, sometimes when you're structured routine, it does become, monotonous. It does become rigid. We spoke about this. And it's important, and it's a training. It's a process of training, and something that I always believe in. I think I was having a chat with a friend of mine who's trying to be a power lifter, where she's been working on getting there. And she was someone who argued saying, hey, you know what, I don't believe in routine. Then you can't operate in chaos. And then I sort of said, hey, for you to be able to lift the amount of kilos that you need to lift to achieve that goal, there has to be some sort of structure, routine. There has to be some sort of a discipline. I think the 3 Ds matter. You guys know what the 3 Ds are?
You mentioned it before.
Do you know what the 3 Ds are all about? Something that I keep talking to some of the guys at GP.
No.
Determination, discipline, dedication. I feel like that matters, and that brings out the need. Even when you are on a routine and you feel like, hey, I'm tired of this. If you dedicate yourself towards it, it helps you achieve it. So whilst I understand why you did ask that question, it is, in my opinion, I think Nadia, you could add to it too. You got to have a mix of everything, and then like she said, feelings. You have to have life. You have to enjoy.
You have to have a life. That's what I tell myself.
It's a balance, man.
It's a balance. Yeah.
You have to have some sort of spontaneity. To go with working.
Because I know you, Mel. I know with Melanth,
That's why he's so spontaneous.
Yes, yeah. He's had conversations with me and be like, hey, I want to be available for people, which every person is different, but you also have to have in my opinion, a stable footing to be there for someone. You have to have that, because it comes a point where you're like, hey, you know what, I need to get my act together. And we're dwelling a little bit more on structure, routine, and the need for it. But if you really look at this podcast and what we're trying to bring out, my opinion from what Nadia shared with me was when she had that struggle, that time she totally flopped was when she went through that breakup. I believe it's the fact that she was able to sort of come out of it was because she had a routine, she was structured. I do think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I had to because I had gone through an unpredictable life situation. So I needed some predictability to make myself a bit more
Structure.
stable. I needed that structure. And I'm a structural person in general. So I need the calendar to be properly updated, the to-do list to be updated. And I also encourage my team to have that so that they are more consistent with their work. Because sometimes you have so much to do and you're like, there's something I'm forgetting. Now, see, if you noted it down, you'd probably be able to track back to it. So that's it. Just helps me. It's easier for me, but it might be different to other people. They might find it easier to manage in some other way, like Mel. But yeah,
Is it easier, Mel?
I mean,
it works.
it works to a certain extent.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay. No, all jokes aside, I mean, I do think everybody can't be the same.
Yeah.
Each person has their own
Each person
system.
has their own way of working on it, but structure is important in my opinion, and at a time of challenge, and we've all gone through. I'm pretty sure if you're looking, if the audience are listening to us, they must be thinking, hey, I've gone through a struggle. And I think one of the key points from what you shared is the importance of visualizing what you want to be. I mean, the fact that you shared that whole thing where you put up a picture of yourself, you photoshopped yourself into Michelle Obama and all that stuff, like it gives you inspiration. Be like, hey, look,
It's possible. I can see myself.
You know?
Yeah.
Which actually, I have a question for Nadia. So, your first startup, I think it was SynergyX. What exactly inspired you to get into outsourcing?
I felt like there was a gap in the market because in the outsourcing company I worked, it was very rigid, and I felt like there's now a need for customization to suit specific client needs because everyone's not going to have the same requirement. People are in different industries and things are so advanced than ever. They might have a specific requirement. So I want to be able to offer my clients that flexibility, that customization. So all our virtual assistant packages are customized to suit their needs.
Yeah.
So if they're based in Australia, it's in Australian hours. If there's like a 24-hour shift that they want done, we get it arranged for them. So we bring that customization, and yeah, that's what makes us different. I would
I think
say.
there is. I mean, it's an impressive thing to work on. But I had a question. I mean, I know we're not throwing questions at you, but it's good to hear. Whilst doing a 9-to-5 job, it inspired you. What inspired you to do the startup is be like, hey, I can be better. And you were obviously coming out of a difficult season, and then that's I believe the result of it is setting up Nina and your outsourcing company. But why do another thing? Is it more building your capacity, expanding your horizon, being like, hey, I wanna.
Yeah, that was basically it. And I also wanted the freedom to manage my own time and finances the way I wanted to. Like, I wanted to be able to go on a trip suddenly and be able to manage my work. And the only way I could do that is by being my own boss. So I'm kind of building that foundation because I went on a trip to Malaysia recently. And that was my first trip without my parents. So my first independent trip. And that was huge because that opened my eyes up to so much what life is possible and what's possible in life. If you have the finances, how much you can do. And I'm not saying in a lavish way, just to experience life without having to worry about coming back home. So that really opened up my eyes. So I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to go and help a family member if they need to be able to take a week off to support a friend or a family member. I wanted that flexibility. And then I realized the only way I can do that is by starting my own thing. And I've always wanted to have a bunch of things. Like, the amount of business ideas I get is insane, so I have to compartmentalize and focus on a few. But there's so much brewing at the moment. But it's in me, to do this. I've loved business ever since I got first into class for business. I love business and I love the whole idea of it. How much potential there is, how much you can impact not only your employees, your family, the community. For example, Bhanuka Harishchandra, the fact that he's achieved so much inspires all other entrepreneurs that they're capable of so much. If not for him, I think people wouldn't have believed that they could make it to Forbes 30 under 30. I don't think it would be like crazy for a Sri Lankan to be on Forbes 30 under 30, but he made it possible. So I want to test the limits of being a business owner. That's probably.
It starts small.
Yeah.
I think one of our episodes, I think episode 6, boss moves.
Yeah.
Small business holders, we really featured on the importance of everyone out there working on something beyond their current workplace and what they can sort of bring in. And Nadia is an example.
I think based on what she has said, I don't know if you all have got the same feeling, but I see her as a venture capitalist in the future, based on...
Is that
Damn.
true? Is that
And
true?
if you noticed, the one that made her flop, the business studies subject, was her biggest strength
her biggest strength.
at the end.
Yeah, it's so crazy
Yeah.
because even when I was doing my A-level paper, I was falling asleep because it was a 3-hour paper. Okay, and but I still got A star for it. My letters were like this.
You got to thank that bully.
I know. He's probably watching this.
Thank you, she says.
Yeah.
No, but then, just touching on that, I think most of us growing up have had bullies. In some sort of a way, I remember when I was schooling 20 years ago.
Did you get that on camera? Can you repeat that?
20 years
20
ago.
years ago.
I mean, it's been a common occurrence and it's been a challenge. I remember one of the teachers coming up to me and saying, hey, you know what? You better not do your ALs because you're not going to get through the way you've been carrying yourself. There's always been that one person. And now I look back at it, I'm grateful that that person said that to me because I came out of it. I was like, oh, that shook me. And then my grades, my results were such when I completed my ALs. I got my 4 A's and I warranted to the fact that there was that person that challenged me and I didn't let it bring me down. And I think it's important, and in a way, sometimes feel like you have to have bullies in your life.
You have to. You have to have people tell you that you can't do something.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And I always tell the guys, I love a challenge. Please
I know,
challenge
I love
me.
it too.
Oh,
So much in common here.
well, you love a challenge too, don't you?
Let's challenge him to do to-do lists.
Yes, I've been challenging
He's
him.
been challenging me for the long.
He has changed actually within the last 2 months.
Become better.
Yeah.
Become better, which is good. I think it's a gradual process. Nobody
Yeah,
can
for
really get into it, and that's something important. If you're listening out there, is change won't happen immediately. It'll take time, and it's also about trusting it. Just because we are sharing it, may not be the time for you to start on it. But I think we've weighed heavily on the importance. Mel, you got to change by the time this is aired next year. If you guys want to know if he has changed when he's aired, you can ask the question on the comment section. Melanta Cruz, have you changed? But no, I think it's important.
Yeah, I think speaking on change, you have to be the person, you have to be willing to change, because there'll be so many people waiting to help you change, but it comes from you, If you are not willing to change, it doesn't matter who's around you helping you change if you are not making that effort,
And sometimes you don't need to wait till you really flop.
Yeah.
You could start right now. I mean, although this segment is focused on the time I totally flopped, you don't really need to wait till you get to that point. It's all about understanding, hey, there can always be a situation. I mean, we are talking here today. You never know what tomorrow holds for us. I mean, it can be that I will encounter a challenge that brings me down. But it's that structure, that confidence, like Nadia mentioned, that you're like, hey, you know what? I'm better than this. I can be better. Building that self-confidence, it's important because I think one of the things that doesn't get featured much is mental health. The importance of having that strength in your mind to be like, no, I got to come out of it. And I'd encourage you to, listen in on our episode 7. If I'm not mistaken, when we spoke about the importance of mental health and even wellness, like Nadia mentioned, sometimes just going on that routine run or jog or something like that releases some of that stress, and it's important. So
yeah, I think there's a mental side to working out that a lot of people don't really attribute to it.
They don't.
They look at the physical aspect of it, but there's certainly a huge mental aspect to working out and
100%.
Keeping yourself fit and the whole wellness side of it.
I think we discussed about this in our previous podcast from episode 8.
Yeah.
Where it was a different aspect. Physical aspect was one thing. But then we discussed about yoga also, which is about an inner dimension where you have to change within you to
Tell us a bit,
change?
Kavi. I think the audience should hear from you the fact that she's started going into yoga and all that stuff. Tell us a bit how.
We went on a retreat last year.
Yes. So I think just like she came to a realization when at a point where she flopped that you needed a change, I realized there was something, let's say, then there needed to be something that changed in me as well. But you needed that, extra level of discipline that someone had to put it into you to build that up, which is where I turned into yoga. Which was, I realized, I know, I used to go to the gym too, but then again, gymming is a needed aspect, but it was only the physical aspect to it. But then again, the emotional aspect, that balance in you had to come through a different discipline, which is where I got into yoga.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Thoughts, Nadia? What do you think?
I think, yoga is definitely something I want to dive into. I think I went for one yoga class this year because I don't have the time. I work out at home. I bought 2 dumbbells and a yoga mat, and that's all I use. Because I was never athletic, so I had to ease into it. But yeah, that sounds amazing. I hope I can make more time next year too.
That was with a very strong realization where you do all the physical activities, but something is still not getting adjusted.
Yeah.
Your emotions, you don't find the balance in it. Like that awareness has to come to you.
It's a growing concept, in my opinion, something that's very interesting to sort of explore one. But yeah, interesting. It's been good in terms of hearing Nadia's story about how she's come out of that whole situation. I mean, if I'm to sort of go around and be like, hey Mel, tell me, what's your major take from today's session? What would it be?
I think just looking at Nadia's drive and determination, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, just to see how 1 year can change your life. Just a short period.
Switch.
Yeah, that's all you need, and you just have to be willing to make the most of the opportunities that come in front of you. She said that she went for this event and she was not all for public speaking, but she took it upon herself.
Leap of faith.
Yeah, to go up there and then speak about her businesses. Because at the end of the day, you're the best ambassador for your business. If you're not going to do it, no one else is going to have the same passion anyway. So just for her to do that for herself, and then to see the results that came of it after she was able to overcome that fear and the positives that came from it. So that's definitely one thing that I'll take away from this episode, and what she said in the previous segments.
Cool. You didn't take the to-do list. It's not that.
Selective hearing.
Yeah, selective hearing. No.
Nadia, anything you want to ask? Anything you got out of talking to us, hearing us, do this?
I haven't spoken about my whole journey in this much depth until today, so
Thank you.
It's been great to kind of let that all out and hopefully to share it with the audience, and hopefully someone benefits from it. It's been great, especially the questions that you asked me. It got me thinking as well. I had to dig deep into that. So thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity.
It was great having you. Kavi, anything you got out of it that you want to share so the audience can sort of?
Yeah, I think it's never too late, which I'm going to pretty much.
It's never too late. I mean, all the great business people, not all, most of the great business people start really late. Nadia is an exception at 23. But yeah.
Yeah, it was very inspiring that she started in a small age, because all my life I think I've had this drive to do this, but I don't think I've had the ability to go to it. Like that switch in terms of starting your own thing.
It's just taking the first step. For me, it was just buying the domain name and meeting a few software developers and be like, I need a website, and there was no turning back. I had to go through with it. I had
once you're invested, you got to see through.
So do that hard thing and invest in that. Then there's no push yourself in the deep end and learn how to swim. That's what I would give.
I mean, once you invest, no coming back, Mel. Mel is a budding YouTuber waiting to sort of put things out. Mel, I'm just going to hold it a bit. Tell us a bit about YouTube and what's holding you back. Maybe there's someone out there that's struggling. the same fear. This is the day we met you, Nadia. When we met you at this certain location, I'm going to say it out loud. We and Vedanta were having a spirited conversation, and it's something that you should share that fear that you spoke about.
No, it's just that I think a lot of people would have this fear of, putting things out there too soon, starting too soon, not being ready. So, you're scared to take that step. But that's exactly what I touched upon when I was talking about the takeaway from this episode. How Nadia just took that leap of faith, and then how it sort of launched all of this that she has achieved. So yeah, that has been my takeaway.
So, are we going to see you putting things out there? Are we going to do-do list on this?
Maybe 2025.
That's just a month away.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But like how we mentioned, I think it's never too late. I learned a lot listening to you young guys talk right now. It's never too late for me to learn and take.
So are you admitting that there's a bit of a generational gap between us?
It is very evident, but it's been amazing having you on this show and having listening to you and your story. And I've been following you on social media ever since I knew you're going to be part of our podcast. Amazing stuff out there. I think Nina is great, and so is your outsourcing company. There's obviously room for growth with everything. We do wish you all the very best with everything, and we'd love for you to have one of your Nina sessions here at GEPic.
For sure, we'll do.
And we'd love to have you, come back again when we have our next GEPic episode being shot, or season being shot in some form of way. But thank you so much for being here. It's been great hearing your story. If you liked what you heard, subscribe. There's a lot more coming up. Stay tuned. Thank you.